Dr. Barrie Tan, welcome to the Biohacking Secret Show.
Thank you. Excited to join you in this.
I'm very excited as well. And we're going to be talking about the truth about vitamin E. And just before we hit record, you had introduced me to this plant called annatto. And
yes,
I think many of our listeners would be interested in learning a little bit more about the annatto plant and why it's so dear to your heart. So maybe you can enlighten us before we even get into your background.
Yes, this is it's an ancient plant. This is a annatto. They look like this. It's a flower like that.
Beautiful.
And it almost look like an Asian fruit called rambutan, but it's not.
Okay.
If you go to Asian store, you see this. We extract them in the West for coloring of cheeses and meat. Like
so
that.
bright red, vibrant red color, yes?
Yes. And then when you dilute it, they become yellowish, orangey hue. And to show you that it's a old use, here's a picture of the Inca. They use it to put stripe on their hair to mark their ranking in society. Oh. So this will be an example.
Wow.
And then this is a Inca child. So you see, he put that on his head.
Yeah.
And you can see the annatto seeds on the ground here. Also, they're insect repellent. So he's protected from the bite of the insect.
Wow.
And this is just a quick take, This is a picture of me when I discovered a younger me. That when I was in South America on this, I think I show you that picture. Then in the back here, you see a picture of a pod. The pod is about the size of a fig. Okay. And then so there's the Amazonian tree frog there.
Yeah.
And then the seed is about the size of a grape. So this is a closed up. So clearly this is an Amazonian secret that not proud in the sense that I'm grateful that of the 50 million chemicals that can be found on Earth, and I'm no medicine hunter. Sometimes people claim themselves to be. I happen to be in the right place at the right time, and then sometimes things happen to you. They are spiritual. So it's somebody gave it to me, and I'll tell the story later. So I just stumbled on this fruit. And this is a very modern picture. I took this picture when I was in Costa Rica. See, I opened the pot, I put it into two. Yeah. I get closer, you see?
Yeah.
This is a very wet pot. If you were to touch it here, it will stain your hand. And enough that the British call this the lipstick plant. So if you go to a botanical garden and ask, do you have a lipstick plant? Probably in the Mason-Dixie line north of it, it probably have to be inside the botanical garden in a hot house. In the South, probably in Florida and Southern California and Texas, you would be able to grow this outside. If you were to have a chance to visit Hawaii, just ask any people from Philippines who live in Hawaii, do you have an annatto plant? They will point to you readily all over Hawaii.
Everywhere, huh? Well, you've got me excited to plant some in North Carolina in our food forest. So it clearly can be used as a dye, right? And you mentioned that it's used by the Inca to show their ranking, and you showed me the picture of the child that had dyed his whole head red. And I guess some women probably used it to attract mates back in the day to make themselves look pretty.
I'm trying to find a connection, that I wonder the original convention for the lipstick of women red color. Okay, today you have many other colors like that. It may have come from this because the British had nicknamed this the lipstick plant probably about 300, 400 years ago. The plant was discovered by the Spanish conquistador, and then he started in Ecuador on the Amazonia there, and then he going all the way to the basin to Brazil, and his name is Francesco de Orellana, and hence the scientific name for this particular fruit is a Bixa orellana, named after him. Bixa is this species. There's not a lot of plant after this species. So right now, if you wouldn't mind, I'll tell you why I bothered how I stumbled on this.
Please.
Okay. The year was the year was 1989, 1990. So you see, this is no flash in the pan for me. And then later, as I explain more, you can automatically see how this is a biohacker's dream. But when I was doing it, I was not biohacking anything, ladies and gentlemen. I was just trying to be a scientist, trying to find things out from nature that is good for me like that. And even if I would be thinking, I sometimes thought that, what gives men and women the right that whatever is best for them is good. The plant never make material for you and I. See, we got it in our head. The plant makes plant material for itself. So even with time, I've learned to respect that.
These selfish plants.
Yeah. So this is actually one of the beautiful things. So Professor Johanna Seedon, she was the Harvard Medical School professor. And then she said that in the back of the retina, to protect the retina from degrading and preserve it, there is lined with lutein. So I'm actually coming to say lutein is where people needed the keratin for macular degeneration. Today, everybody seems to know about it. But back in the 1990s, nobody seemed to know. Then I was fascinated. Hey, I think that in Peru or Ecuador, they have giant marigold on the petal. I can extract this. So for that reason, I went to South America. Now, think of this, right? So much of life is serendipitous. I'm just trying to bear out my soul. It's like this.
Please do. Continue. I like it.
I am Chinese and I am Asian. And there's a lot of this biodiversity thing in plant in Asia. But that's not where I went. I cannot speak a word of Spanish. But that was where I went. See, the whole thing is an oddity. So I went to South America looking for this plant. Cannot speak a word of Spanish. And then, somebody up there, God or somebody up there is seeing it fit to disclose this to me. Now, remember, I went there to look for this marigold plant for the lutein. I'm already a carotenoid expert at this time. And then the lutein thing is good. So I did find a giant marigold. I next time when I see you in person, I don't have the book in front of me. I actually may, if I do, I show you this. Here, a picture of, sorry about this. Here, this is my book, by the way. If you download my name, then you can get a free copy of it. See,
the truth about vitamin E.
The truth about vitamin E. And then if you look a younger me. I was in South America. I did find the giant marigold.
You're surrounded by them.
Yeah, surrounded by. So I did,
in a field of yellow marigolds.
Yeah. So truth be told, I did find it. But fate has it. Literally 30 feet away from me, I saw this annatto plant. I did not know how to pronounce the word annatto. Why was I fascinated? I'll show you the picture again. I'm sure your audience didn't catch.
It looks almost like a pomegranate seed.
Yeah, it does. Now, yes, it does. So look at it carefully.
Yes.
This fruit is unusual, and it's not at first blush you can see this. I know you're seeing it very close up like that. I'll ask the question and then rhetorically I answer. What is it unusual? In every fruit that you eat, there's always a flashy component. Just think of a fruit: apple, pineapple, mango, banana, anything. Mm-hmm. That fleshy part is called mesocarp. If you look at this fruit, where the fleshy part is nothing. It's air. It just have the seed and then the pod. Mm-hmm. So that is unusual because I have been a carotenoid chemist for almost all my life before I did this. Keratins are bound inside the cell. That's why when you do tomato sauce, the lycopene only under heat is slowly come out, the lycopene. Mm-hmm. And then the carrot, if you cook the carrot in oil and blanch it, when you blanch in high temperature, it come out in the oil. Otherwise, inside the cell. If you live where I do in New England, you will find lobster. They are greenish or yucky green or bluish color crustacean. When you cook them, they turn brilliant orangey color or red color. That means that they are bound to protein. The protein deproteinate, and then you see the color. All these examples I gave you is to tell you that in nature, keratin are bound to protect itself from degradation.
Oh,
This
wow.
this is the only fruit that I know is not bound. Why do I know it's not bound? Because if you touch it, it stains you. So therefore, if it stains me, then I theorize there must be something that is not inside a cell, not bound to a protein that protect it from degradation. I was guessing it was a very powerful polyphenol because there are many polyphenol antioxidants. To my shocking surprise, I think this is meant to be. It was tocotrienol. I was already a learned scientist in tocotrienol in other areas like palm and rice, but never in this. So when I took it back, when I removed all the color and then pull out this nearly yellowish color thing, I found out, my God, this is almost all vitamin E and no tocopherol, only contain tocotrienol, and the two most potent tocotrienol this side of the face of the earth have ever seen. I said, am I serious? So my chemist looked at it for 3 weeks. Why we look at it for so long? Because we distrust our own analysis. So
It's nice to see some guys doing proper science these days. Oh, you're in a small company.
We repeated the experiment again and again, thinking that we must have messed it up big time. And sure enough, we didn't. So because of that, that was probably 1989, 1990. So now you fast forward 22, 23 years, I'm still at it. So to your listener, I'm in this for the long haul. And when we talk about animal study and clinical study, what we do with this, after you hear this podcast, you got to be taking tocotrienol like that. And I can tell you where to get them. But for now, how about I pass it back to you? You got a million questions you want to ask me? I'll try to answer your question.
This is awesome. Okay, so I want to make sure I understood your story and our listeners as well. So you went in search of these giant marigold plants originally.
Correct.
And then you found them, and nearby you came across this annatto plant, which has been used by the Inca, and even it was called the lipstick plant because of its brilliant red color and the fact that it can be used to dye and stain the skin or clothing. And you started thinking to yourself, okay, everywhere in nature that we see carotenoids, they're bound to preserve them, to protect them. That's why you have to cook tomatoes in order to make the lycopene accessible. You have to cook carrots if you really want to extract all of the nutrients. But in this annatto plant, it was a rare example where it was not bound. The carotene was not bound. And you said, well, how is that possible? There has to be something protecting it from degradation, from oxidizing, if you will. So you pulled out the carotene, and what was left was essentially a form of vitamin E, or a tocotrienol, if I'm pronouncing it correct.
Yes.
And in a rare case where there was no tocopherol, another derivative of vitamin E, is that accurate? And how much did I say wrong there that needs to be corrected?
You know something? For the audience, whatever, Anthony, right?
Yes.
Anthony said he's got 100% correct.
100%.
It's a good student.
Shut it down. We're done. It's all downhill from here.
You got it, man. You got it.
So this is great. And I mean, a lot of people have heard of vitamin E, and I even have taken a product back in the day called Unique E. That was a vitamin E supplement that I thought was good at the time. I don't know if it's any good. But I'm sure you have a better one, or maybe you get it from food. But why is vitamin E so fascinating as a vitamin? What does it do in the body, and what has inspired you to go so deep on vitamin E?
Yes, this is an excellent question. First, let me put it this way. Vitamin E, there are two groups. They are the tocopherols, which you find in a cereal box, and then there's tocotrienol. Tocopherol was first discovered exactly 100 years ago by two pediatricians in 1922, UC Berkeley. They discovered this factor at the time, and this factor is able to bring the fetus to full term. Most people don't realize this. Vitamin E was discovered because it brings the fetus to, so it's a birth vitamin like that. And most people know vitamin E instead as an antioxidant instead like that. So that's vitamin E. And then tocotrienol is almost a runt in the litter that is never going to, almost did not survive. It was discovered 40 years after, like the 1960s. And when they first discovered it, they mislabeled them. Normally, vitamin E, as in tocopherol, you have 4 Greek letters: alpha, beta, delta, gamma, tocopherol, like that. This is before they have the tocotrienol label. And then they use chromatography, their paper chromatography, not so sophisticated then, they have it. So they have a dot here, a streak, a dot here, streak, a dot here, so you can see alpha, beta, delta, gamma. Then when they did this, they didn't know what it was. They have in the alpha, there's a shadow dot just right below it. And then gamma, there's a shadow dot below it, and delta, a shadow dot below it. Then they decided to name this. They already got the alpha, beta, delta, gamma. Then they have other Greek letters in old literature like nu, epsilon, zeta. So they call it nu, epsilon, zeta, tocopherol. So these kind of nu, epsilon, zeta, and phi, like the PHI, phi tocopherol, they are actually alpha, beta, delta, gamma, tocotrienol. So they are mislabeled. They thought they were tocopherol. So that did not get corrected until almost 30 years after. Scientists know, but the standard textbook is not correcting it. So then how I got into this, 1983, when I was a University of Massachusetts professor, when I thought, wow, man, even the literature got this thing wrong. And then in the 1990s, all these studies with alpha tocopherol said that it could cause cancer or get things worse. I said, I think I'm royally dead now because they're going to throw the baby with the bathwater away. They cannot differentiate one from the other. But somehow I persisted. So fortunately, there's food on the table. I'm able to survive. So I continue. So this is truly a labor of love. So I continued it. And then, sure enough, among the alpha, beta, delta, and gamma tocotrienol, now I mentioned 4 of each like that. Of these 8 vitamins, if you Google, you will find out everything will fall out and 2 of them will survive. The 2 that is most indicative of helping us to fix chronic condition and fix our life is delta and gamma tocotrienol. Delta and gamma tocotrienol. Delta as in Delta Airline, gamma as in gamma, ferulic acid gamma, like that. So now, when I discovered this from Anato, would you believe it? It only contained 90% delta and 10% gamma tocotrienol and nothing else. So when I stumbled on this, I said, I think I found in nature the most potent vitamin E ever to have been given to me. And then for the plant, they make this tocotrienol to protect the keratin from degradation. That's it. So I'm just lucky to be there to stumble on this. So that's, now you ask the question, why am I so interested in studying this? I think the best way I can explain this is like this. Every human has approximately 70 to 80 kg of weight, 130 to 180 pounds. So it's about 60 to 70 kg. Contained in that person is 38 trillion cells. 38 trillion is a big number. You just jot it down. 38 trillion is about 5,000 times the population of the Earth. Say the Earth population is 7 billion, multiplied by 5,000, approximating to 38 trillion. So there's a lot of cells in the body, not very big size. That's why it can contain there. Now, what does a cell look like? The cell look like a bean, like this, most like a bean. And then so all the content inside the cell is here, the nucleus, the mitochondria, and all the other things. Scientists call them organelle. But to contain that, there must be a cell wall. You have to have a cell wall. And the cell wall is a cell membrane, is laden with what we call phospholipid. It's got the phosphate group on top and a fatty acid below. And then you just line it all around. So therefore, when people say you need antioxidant to protect your body, I'm just cutting it to the chase to help the audience to really appreciate it. Everybody say that their stuff is an antioxidant. So after a while, your ear begin to spaz because you don't know what it means like that. And I'm a scientist. I'm not spazzing. I know what they mean. So when they say you protect this, you protect that, and then you protect the DNA, you protect it like that. Not that you don't believe this, but a lot of them are noise. It cluttered it more. But I will present it to you like this. Of all the things in our body that is most challenged to be oxidized is fat, hands down. In the summertime, we're going to come to summer, somebody is going to find a roadkill. I'm sorry that my example are very crude, but you get the meaning. Or you put a stick of butter in the yard. Yeah. You smell something. The butter is the obvious example because they're almost all fat, but a dead carcass is not. When you smell the dead carcass, that smell of the dead carcass, they are oxidized fat. They're not smell of oxidized protein or oxidized DNA. Not that oxidized DNA and oxidized protein or oxidized carbohydrate are not good, but the first thing you smell is oxidized fat. What am I saying? The lowest and the easiest thing to oxidize is fat. Once you got that, you will cut the chase. So that when you talk about antioxidant, you came most of the 20 to 30% fat in your body to be protected from oxidation. You don't want other things to get oxidized correct. It's just like oxidized LDL, oxidized glycated hemoglobin, A1C, you see, they're protein. But mainly, you don't want your fat to be oxidized. And where are most of those fat? They are not necessarily your love handle. Most fat is exactly what I explained here. Surrounding each of the 38 trillion cells are the cell membrane, and those are the fatty acids. So if you take omega-3 fatty acid, you're hoping that it will line those fatty acids there with time if you take long enough. And if you do that, guess what? The omega-3 is highly oxidizable. So you want the fat on your cell membrane to be protected. So now that I convinced you and arrested your attention, you want antioxidant to be able to snug into the phospholipid of the cell membrane. And now in 1980, there was a professor. I only know his last name, Esther Bauer. He was an Austrian professor, Esterbaur, very Germanic type sounding name in Austria. He decided to address this. He got many cells, remove all the cell, the lipid, and he harvests all the antioxidant and try to figure out what are the antioxidant that is stuck right in the cell wall. And then now that I'm going to decipher it out, of them, 90% of those antioxidants, I hope your audience are listening to this, they are vitamin E molecules, which means tocotrienol and tocopherol. 10%, 10 miserable percent of those antioxidants are things that you and I heard about. They are beta-carotene, CoQ10. Nobody mentioned resveratrol. Nobody mentioned astaxanthin. They are also powerful antioxidants, but that is not where they reside. Because when you talk about an antioxidant, like I'll purposely think about EGCG, green tea extract, or quercetin. You see a molecule here. They have an OH group here, OH group here, OH group here, OH group here. So quercetin, curcumin, resveratrol, EGCG, they have 3 to 4 OH group on other molecule. So when you have like that, just think of they have 3 to 4 headed snake. And when you stick into the lipid, you cannot have hydroxy group. You must have lipid group. So when you talk about tocotrienol look like this.
Got a big, whoa. So he's got a giant molecule.
Vitamin E. Now, if I purposely get off the screen here, you see that? The black is carbon, the white is hydrogen. So it's very lipid. So they are like hydrocarbon. Okay. They are like your hexane. You put in your octane, you put in your gas, like that hydrocarbon.
Right.
So this hydrocarbon will stick. If the frame of my talk is a cell wall, it will stick like that inside. If you have oxygen group like this and this, it is very uncomfortable inside the membrane. It have to go out like this.
Okay.
So if you have resveratrol, you got OH group everywhere, it will not stick into the membrane. And so this molecule, this will stick into the membrane. And this one here, the powerful antioxidant, is sticking out of the membrane. And when it stick out, that is where it capture radical oxygen. So that's why vitamin E is crafted by nature to be the antioxidant that protect the cell membrane. That's all I wanted to say. And because of that, I am very interested to study vitamin E. And tocotrienol present the best case for this in all of nature. So
that is a great example that you just gave, and a fascinating. I mean, you would have been a fantastic professor. Well, I would have slept a lot less in college. Okay, so
you got straight A's.
I got straight A's. So how do we tie this into, I'm starting to understand why many of the things that are called antioxidants are perhaps not as important or beneficial, because they don't directly impact the cell membrane, the lipid bilayer. And then if you go a little bit deeper, some of the things that are called antioxidants are actually pro-oxidants, and then they result in our body increasing production of actual antioxidants, like vitamin C, for example. So it gets to be a mess, and everyone's just like, my product contains antioxidants, that's why you should take it, and you're right. People just start tuning out. So with vitamin E, and specifically with these tocotrienols, they integrate and reside in the lipid bilayer, in the cell membrane, which is where most of our fat that is the most vulnerable to oxidation resides. Correct. And so by focusing on consuming and replenishing our body's supply of these antioxidants, specifically vitamin E and the tocotrienols, we then almost provide our lipid bilayer with an army that it recognizes and that protects the cells from the oxidative stress and reactive oxygen species that are outside of the cell and could otherwise cause problems. What I screw up?
You are spot on, and I'm actually saying this in truth. I happen to have in the back here. I want to show you because you say it's a video too. This is your audience probably know about this. This is a molecule of CoQ10.
Okay.
You know CoQ10?
Yeah.
And over here, the molecule is so long that I show you here. This is the antioxidant head here. You can see this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Antioxidant head. The OH group is here. So this one is here. Now, the black and the white are hydrogen. So you see the tail is very long.
Very long.
I'll only make this molecule.
It's going off your desk.
Yes.
You need a bigger desk.
Yes. If I put in the tocotrienol is only merely like this. So this CoQ10 is much longer. All this to say, this CoQ10 is made in our body. This CoQ10 is 100% residing in cell membrane. So our body, through the evolution of time, already make this molecule to be permanently residing in a cell wall to protect our cell wall from oxidation. But of course, as we age, we don't make enough this CoQ10. If we take a medication like statin, it will inhibit the synthesis of CoQ10. And then that's when you have oxidized LDL, oxidized fat like that. Notice that? Oxidized LDL and oxidized fat. What is LDL? LDL is fat. You see that like that? Nobody says oxidized protein or carbohydrate. It's fat. And when you have oxidized LDL, that's not good news. And this, even evolutionarily, our body make this compound. So it's good for people to take CoQ10, particularly as we age. Right. So I only show you this molecule to tell you, you see, the white and the black color, they are hydrocarbon. So they're deeply, very oil soluble. They stick into your fat. So if you have oxygen group, it will not readily or comfortably stick into your fat. So trust me, I am very sure about this, like that. Yeah. So if people talk about antioxidant, don't be just ask them, do they comfortably stay in the cell membrane? If it is not that they aren't important, but 38 trillion cell, most of the 38 trillion cell have carry your 25 to 30% fat. Well, that matters to you and I the most, because the fat is the easiest thing to get oxidized, and I need that to be protected. That's it.
Very interesting.
That's my narrative, and I have not changed my narrative for years, and nobody has attacked me on that yet.
I'd like to see them try. So we're going to tie this back into the annatto plant in just a minute, and how we should be getting the vitamin E that is required to protect our bodies and our fat and the lipid bilayer. So I'm just planting that seed. But I'm a little bit curious. So I've had my good friend Tyler LeBaron on the podcast, and he runs the Molecular Hydrogen Institute.
Whoa!
And one of the things that he taught me was that if you were to look at like the efficacy of an antioxidant, part of it depends on the size, right? You just showed us CoQ10 back there, which was like going off your desk, which means it's pretty big. The example he gave, he's like, okay, if CoQ10 is like the size of your fist, right? He goes, molecular hydrogen is like the tip of your thumb. And he goes, and because molecular hydrogen is so small, it can get into the cells. It can go through the lipid bilayer, and it can get into where the mitochondria reside and help protect our cells in that fashion. And I was curious, and feel free to skip over this if it's not in your wheelhouse, but can you compare and contrast the benefits of as an antioxidant between something like vitamin E, and then the tocotrienols, and a molecular hydrogen, and where you see them in relation to one another?
That would be very different. A molecular hydrogen would be this one of this white thing. Yeah. One. So therefore, a molecular hydrogen is not it's not an organic molecule. It's an atom. So that it would be able to go to places a molecule like that cannot. A molecule like that would be able to go into your cell, because our human cell is made of organic molecule. A hydrogen atom like that, it would be, you'll have to be controlled very seriously if we were to use them. Otherwise, if they go in, because the atom is so small, it will randomly react with anything on its path. So it's very hard to control. When you have a molecule like this is it wouldn't be able to do the powerhouse of hydrogen, but then it's almost like it's tailor-made for something in your body. Right. But with a hydrogen atom or like a nuclear reaction, it will just do magical, powerful stuff, and it will burn everything on its trail. So I cannot even imagine the comparison. The molecular one will have much more powerful thing. It will probably burn, because the biochemistry and the biology of a person is constructed. is constructed based on organic molecules. So an atom will be probably very damaging to it. Whereas a molecule, if it's designed properly, it would have a perfect place. Just scientists use different phrase. Sometimes they say intercalate goes in. Other time you just say, I just use a simple way. It just snuck in perfectly like that. So, so I don't think that there is a direct comparison like that.
Gotcha.
It will be atoms and molecules.
So the molecules you're saying are almost tailor-made for the body and more stable because of the combinations of atoms that comprise them.
Comprise the molecule, yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, all right. And the one other thing that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned was statins. I mean, my dad has Parkinson's, and we've been slowly and strategically working with doctors to get him off of everything that probably contributed to that. Statins being one of them. You know, he was put on statins 2 decades ago, and then Dr. Joseph Mercola, who was on the podcast, helped awaken me to some of the dark side of statins and what they do to oxidize the fat in our body and how they can increase our risk of dementia and all of these other chronic and degenerative conditions. So I'm very appreciative of that. Is there ever do you see any reason that someone should be taking statins? I don't know of any. And that's why I'm asking you, because maybe I'm overlooking it. But the more I dug into the scientific literature on statins, the uglier and uglier it looked.
Yeah. How about there are different camps of people with statin, and I'll share my thoughts, and you may or may not appreciate it, but I'll just say what I factually know about this. I'm writing a paper on statin, and statin has much to do with this molecule here. This molecule. This molecule is called geranyl. But the tail is also hydrocarbon, except got one OH group here. The OH group here is not on a ring, so it's not an antioxidant. So this is geranyl is called GG.
I'll spell it for the listeners real quick too. It's GERANYLGERANIOL or GG.
Yes.
Just for the people that want to nerd out and look it up.
Yeah. And then if you look it up, if you wanted to download, if you go to my website, AmericanRiverNutrition.com, you can download the white paper for the tocotrienol. We have only 3 things we focus on. The tocotrienol, GG, you can download the white paper. And the last one we make a ubiquinol, which is the active form of CoQ10. We call duoquinol. So we don't do anything else but these 3. Tocotrienol, GG, and duoquinol, which is ubiquinol. And of the 3, this is just a blessing, and it's emotional to me. You know how I discovered this? When I was looking from the same plant here, the same thing. I haven't changed. I know you're going to see this, and it's boring now.
The anatomy. No, it still looks pretty.
Yeah. So when I extract this, and then we found the vitamin E, and then after I removed the vitamin E, I account for it. I saw this compound called GG. Then if I look at it carefully, see this vitamin E compound here. If I block this, you see here, this one here is a ring. Yeah. It's called a quinone ring, and the antioxidant is where my pinky is. Now, if I go to the other side intentionally, see here?
Yeah.
If I purposely block the ring, that is GG.
Okay.
That is GG. So evolutionarily, the plant make extra amount of GG so that it can use it to synthesize tocotrienol. That's it. So this is what the plant does. The human body does not make tocotrienol. Now let me give you a bombshell understanding, and then I'll try to come back to the statin thing. The entire GG is required for the synthesis of 4 things that I know. 4 things. There are probably more, but I know of 4. It's required for the synthesis of CoQ10. The entire tail of CoQ10, you see that? The black and white thing here is 2.5 times the length of the GG. So it looks for the GG. Remember, CoQ10 is an endogenous compound. The body makes it. So all that to say, GG is found in the human body. It is the last common step. So if you are a biohacker, be a botanical hacker too, because this is the last common step between animal and a plant. Animal use GG to make things like vitamin E, to make things like all the beautiful color of carotene. You need this. And in the human being, it's used for making CoQ10. Without CoQ10, we cannot live. And this is the compound our body makes. This is the last common step. So this is almost spiritual. This is the compound, the last common step before a plant, not one species and the other. The plant and the human. I mean, one has a heart and with blood, and the other one have chlorophyll and green color. These are very different genuses. Like that. So anyway, this one and the second one, GG is required in the human body to make, and I know I'm saying many things at one time. Many of your audience heard about manoquinone, particularly MK4. For bone health, for this and that.
Like a vitamin K.
MK, other natto, and then you eat manoquinone. It's a special kind of vitamin K too. I'm going to give you another bombshell like that. The only manoquinone made inside our human body, not by fermentation in the gut, not the gut here, but made all inside the body systemically, is MK4. Mm-hmm. That is a well-kept secret. Ladies and gentlemen, if they were to be a biohacking thing, that is biohacking. Because you need to know, why does the body make only this manoquinone, MK4? And the entire tail of MK4 is GG. Entire tail of MK4 is GG. So when you take green leafy vegetable, you got phyloquinone, K1. When you get to the gut, it's like a pair of scissors. They cut the tail off. The fixed amount of phyloquinone K1 goes in because we need vitamin K1 in case we need to have clotting because we have tear in our body. So it's got to seal the clot, or you got to cut in your hand. You need vitamin K1. So a fixed amount, so hemostasis will go in. Most of the phyloquinone is going to be clipped off, and the ring goes in, the tail flush out. Did you know that? And if you don't believe that is so, let me ask you a rhetorical question. Think about it. If that is not so, if a person is a vegan and a vegetarian, and they eat a lot of vegetable and only vegetable, or a cow that only eat grass, you would think they would have so much vitamin K, they would all clot to death. The cow would clot to death, and all the vegan would clot to death because they have so much good vitamin K because they're vegan, you see. But that's not happening. Why is it not happening? It's because only a fixed amount of vitamin K1 goes in. Most of the other one, the tail is cut off, the ring goes in. I wanted to shorten it. You'll look inside your body all over at least 25 organs, this compound GG in the human body, and it would stitch the ring and the tail together. Once they're stitched together, that is MK4. That is MK4, not MK7, not MK9, not 9, not 13, not 11. Please do this. I will send you all the paper. I want my audience to be educated. If that is biohacking, that is, man. That is a botanical hacking too. So the plant uses to make carotene, this and another thing. So I get you 2. So it used this compound the body makes to make CoQ10, to make MK4. This is already big. MK4, anti-arteriosclerosis, calcification, bone health, blah, 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 like that. So I can go each one of them deeper another time.
Yeah.
So the third one, it is used for promoting the body on promoting the body to increase the synthesis of testosterone. You can go many directions with it. It could be increased libido. The Japanese were the first to study this. I'm not saying that increasing libido is not good for people who needs it, but the Japanese study is interesting. You know why they studied? They weren't studying because of libido. They were studying this because in the elderly population, the elderly have loss of thrive. They can't walk properly. So therefore, it's a muscle thing. And testosterone increase the muscle strength, so they're able to have thrive. And the GG is able to increase MK4 and in turn able to increase thrive. So I gave you 3. And the last one that I know, the last one directly connects with statin, which was the question you asked me. Why do you need statin? Should someone take statin? When people take statin, the intention of the invention of statin about 35 years ago was that it was discovered in a mole. A Japanese scientist discovered it, and then the pharmaceutical company quickly came in and synthesized it. This statin drug has a small tail, and the tail is able to interculate and stick it into an enzyme called HMG reductase enzyme. And this HMG reductase enzyme is a critical step for the synthesis of cholesterol. So when you inhibit this enzyme, then cholesterol synthesis is inhibited. I'm just trying to answer this non-emotionally, although I respect where you're coming from. You read this and you're emotionally actually struck, say, why are people taking, and so many Americans are taking this? This is really bad. So there is, but I'll just bear out as is. I'll just remove my emotion. I think that if I remove, I am also emotional about it. But if I remove it, then your audience will be able to judge it, and probably some nugget of truth will come. But that was the original intent. And the 2 professors who did this, they're from University of Texas. They got the 1989 Nobel Prize for it. So there is a place for the inhibition of the synthesis of cholesterol. Now, I know the audience could say, well, why do we care about high cholesterol? High cholesterol is not the monkey on our back like that. So I'm not answering that. But it was the famed Framingham, Massachusetts study. You can Google this. If you ever come to Massachusetts, the U.S. government in the 1950s or 40s after World War II, they want to choose a small town in the United States to be, and they decided it would be Framingham, Massachusetts. That institute is still there. So they are doing study into the 5th generation. There are no such study. Anthony, if you ever come to Massachusetts, go to that institute. It is rich, and they are not pushing nothing. They are just trying to, the United States government have put in billions of dollars by now. They're studying is a home town. They study a group of people who are white collar, blue collar, into the next generation, now they're into the 3rd generation. You can actually see there were 2 or 3 time cover of a great-grandmother, grandmother, daughter, like that. So they study this, to see. It was from that study that they first found. Now they have many discoveries. The first discovery was smoking and red meat cause heart disease. That was in the 1950s. And then soon after that, say that when people have high cholesterol, they have high arteriosclerosis and heart attack. They are not talking about the pharmaceutical company. They're just trying to have finding. And the pharmaceutical company then cash in to figure out, if it's high cholesterol, then let's nail the high cholesterol and figure out. Then they came up with statin. So they came up with it. And then later they also found out that inflammation is no good. So that's that. So they are not a government institution. They're just trying to do study.
Right.
So, but then now statin has gotten into his 3rd generation of thing. About 40 million Americans take statin like that. And then American Diabetes Association said that diabetics should be taking. So their pleiotropic effect, this and another thing. Meanwhile, you have CAM. And I read several books, right? This whole thing, statin is a hoax, this and that. These are very emotional way that people present it. But I can say this. The amount of people taking statin probably is not necessarily to be that high. But at the same time, to say that cholesterol is not a culprit, it's hard for me to believe that. The cholesterol has, but is cholesterol all the culprit in cardiovascular disease? I don't think so. It was a Harvard professor who said half of the people who died have high cholesterol, who had died of cardiovascular disease. The other half did not. Right. Then he figured out the other half that didn't have severe inflammation. And his name is Paul Ridker, Ridker, Paul Ridker. And recently, he came up with the study of C-reactive protein. Now, C-reactive protein, everybody analyzes a measure of inflammation like that. And then now he said that closely next to CRP is interleukin-6. So those are the good two measures that marks inflammation in addition to cholesterol lowering. I think cholesterol lowering is important, but I will address this. When you take statin, the making of cholesterol pathway, I liken to them like an interstate highway. And the cholesterol pathway is not Highway 1. It's Interstate 95, the most trafficked highway in the United States, from Maine to Florida. So that is it's called the mevalonic acid pathway, where cholesterol is made. Cholesterol is made somewhere here. And the statin drug attack the HMG reductase here. So it actually almost inhibits something metaphorical, right? If the highway is from Maine to Florida, the HMG reductase actually inhibit the enzyme in the Boston exit. You can follow me on this, just hypothetically. And then the cholesterol synthesis is in Washington, D.C., much further down. So therefore, if you take statin drug, it inhibits many other things. Somewhere south of, let's say cholesterol synthesis is in New York City. That's good enough. Somewhere below, like in Washington, D.C., people say that their CoQ10 drop when people take statin, because CoQ10 synthesis is in Washington, D.C., a site going this way. These are the main highway, these are the byway, like that. Mm-hmm. And then further down, somewhere in North Carolina, they say that they have muscle problem. That is myopathy with statin. So therefore, if you inhibit in Boston so strong, because the cholesterol dropped like mad, everything else below is decimated. So now I will give you the bottom truth about the last of the GG function. CoQ10 synthesis, MK4, testosterone, and the last one is GG is required for the synthesis of skeletal muscle protein. Just they meant skeletal muscle protein. And GG, if you inhibit statin at Boston and cholesterol is in Washington, D.C., you inhibit cholesterol in Boston. GG is somewhere in New Haven before you get the cholesterol synthesis. So part of the highway of Interstate 95 is the synthesis of GG. So when you inhibit Boston with statin, you will inhibit this molecule big time.
The GG
if you
production.
Inhibit this molecule big time, this molecule is unable to produce enough. That is why people have myopathy. That is exactly why people have low CoQ10, because this molecule is needed for synthesis of CoQ10. He said, what about the MK4? See, your eye is going to open now. The MK4 is this. If you read, when people take statin drug, they can also have kidney stone or have dementia. Mm-hmm. The increased dementia, kidney stone, and loss like this. That's because GG is required for the synthesis of MK4 in the brain and also required for synthesis of MK4 in the kidney. So I have just hopefully painted for you a picture. What are the bad side effects of statin? And the bad side effects of statin is because of the inhibition of this molecule, not cholesterol. The cholesterol is just to prevent arteriosclerosis. Because this molecule is responsible for CoQ10. That's why when people take statins, sometimes they have low energy. Mm-hmm. They inhibit this molecule, their NK4 drop, and then they actually have kidney problem, have a thinking problem, forehead, and then also they have a increase of type 2 diabetes because this molecule is required for the maintenance of sugar. So this molecule. So, however, if you download the paper that I wrote on my website, it explains this molecule impact on the human body. So if I stay with these two molecules for the rest of my professional life, I'll be happy. The tocotrienol cell membrane, and this is an endogenous compound. It's in your body. Mm-hmm. So, and then even if someone don't talk about statin, is there a value of taking this? I'll give you a simple one. As we grow older, we lose muscle mass. Mm-hmm. And that condition is called sarcopenia. You just go to a nursing home. If I'm going to do a study on this, if I can prove that this compound can help people not to lose muscle mass, this would be fantastic for all the elderly, so that at least when they age, they have some quality of life other than they cannot even walk. So so I'm very thrilled. And this, I started to do this compound in the last 2 years. Like I've been aware. You should Google this on the internet. What is the function of GG, this and that? When you do this, you are not going to go to sleep. So if I were to be on your other side, on your biohacker thing, listening to you, I would want to know. I am going to find out to the last drop. Why does the human body make GG, and why does it? Because it's a very most other thing is like exogenous. You use it to intervene something, mm-hmm. but GG is something your body makes. So first start with that. Why does the body makes that? And how does the body get decimated with this? You remember on CoQ10, people say this. CoQ10 is called ubiquinone. It's called ubiquinone because it's ubiquitous. I will go further. CoQ10 is ubiquitous because GG is ubiquitous in your body. Mm-hmm. So any decimation of GG in the body is not good news. So that I'm thinking, and then now...
And statins decimate GG.
Statin decimate GG. And then for what it's worth, people said that, I try to be very honest with myself. What is Dr. Tan trying to push like that? I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you. American River Nutrition is a tiny company. I put all the science on this. And we are the first company in the world to make GG. And we got it from a humble plant called Anato you see behind here. We make it in America. And I am an immigrant. I have many chances for asking by people to make this elsewhere. I didn't. I make it in one of the most expensive states in the union. And I'm right here. And I'm doing this, and I'm doing this for the benefit of all. I'm taking this GG. So, and full disclosure, I take statin because I have genetic hypercholesterolemia, very high. I control, and then I worried if I would have a myopathy. When I take statin, I did not find muscle pain at any part of my body. I'm very grateful. So I'm going to do a test to see if and measure my CoQ10. My CoQ10 did not drop. It's on the first quintile of people. In other words, a normal amount of CoQ10 level is about 2.0. Less than 1 is not good. And my CoQ10 typically is about 4 to 5. So it's very high like that. Yes, I take CoQ10 supplement, but I also take GG, and the GG may stimulate my body to make more CoQ10 as well. So that's it. I'm giving you full disclosure, but even if you don't think that even if you think that I may be partially pushing CoQ10, you should read about the CoQ10 people published. Statin is one drug that inhibits it. Another one affects women a lot. You know, a postmenopausal women take a drug to prevent them to have osteoporosis. That drug is called bisphosphonate. BIS phosphonate. It's got phosphate group, bisphosphonate. And bisphosphonate increase the calcium deposit into the bone. A good thing, increase the calcium deposit. And then about 20 years ago, a dentist was seeing women. And then when they opened their mouth to check their teeth, they noticed that the gum is dying, which is a very odd thing. So then he found out that, wow, this is a very unusual oral thing. So he noticed that the gum is dying. Now to shorten it, the bisphosphonate is inhibiting, very specific. The bisphosphonate is inhibiting GG right at the gum, so that the gum is dying. So that condition, I'll say the whole name, it is acronized as BRONJ. If I spell it out, you're going to freak out. It actually stands for bisphosphonate related osteonecrosis of the jaw. In other words, osteonecrosis is the death of the cell in the jaw. So if you just type BRONJ and then you say, my goodness, and then you say, and how does this happen? Because it specifically inhibits GG. And now you ask me why is GG? So if it's not taking bisphosphonate, so I just explained to you, GG will be used in the gum for you to make good gum. And as we grow older, we have receding gum line. Guess what? Why do we have receding gum line? Because our body is not able to make enough GG. So that's it. So I can go on and on, but I don't want to do that because I'm hogging your space. You know, I want you to ask me a question. So GG is highly necessary in our body.
I'm sold. So to kind of summarize, GG is required and utilized in the synthesis of CoQ10, the vitamin K2 in its MK4 form, manoquinone. It increases the synthesis of testosterone, and it's utilized in the production of skeletal muscle protein and a whole bunch of other things. But those four is very powerful already. Very powerful. Just those four is powerful already.
Any one of those will be good. So I'm just thinking, oh, wow, people should be taking this, but it cannot be any earlier because we did not have this. Actually, I've been studying for the last 15 years for the audience purposes. Then Dr. Tan, why are you not doing this any earlier? First, you should know, I was not out there to cashing in quick. Why did I wait this long? Because I'm doing a new nutritional supplement. Yes, it is from a plant, but I have to prove that it is safe. So we did safety and toxicological study. We published this, and then until we got GRAS, FDA GRAS is GRAS. The FDA mean that it generally recognized as safe. Until we get GRAS, we were determined not to put it out in the market. We just got GRAS a year ago. That's why I'm talking. But I've been studying this for a long time. So you can just Google. Many people publish about this. But if you want a starting point, just download my white paper first. And then many people write about this in different areas of study.
Yes. And so I'm on AmericanRiverNutrition.com right now. Mm-hmm. You got me so excited about GG and you know the vitamin E, the tocotrienols, and I want to talk a little bit more about duoquinol. Mm-hmm. Are you guys selling these right now, or can you just?
Yeah, we make this in large quantity, so we don't sell finished product. Meaning that when we make them, they are about 20 a 55-gallon drum and 1 ton tote. So just think like that. So we're selling ingredient, and companies you can buy on the internet. If you put quinol, or you simply put annatto GG or annatto tocotrienol. If you put annatto GG, annatto tocotrienol, there are some companies that come to mind would be Designs for Health.
Okay.
Like that, Designs for Health, they do this. But there were other companies. Actually, if you go onto our website, it probably lists all the company that sell them. The list. So you can then buy from that company, but make sure that they say it's from annatto.
I gotcha. All right. So
okay.
I'm here on AmericanRiverNutrition.com, and your partners, I recognize some of these names. So I recognize Designs for Health. I recognize Allergy Research Group. I recognize Ecological Formulas. I recognize Nutricology. Some really good, Nordic Naturals too. So some really good companies here that integrate. Is there any one product that has both the GG and the tocotrienol in it?
Yeah. Just pop in my head. Design for Health has one. I think they call it annatto EGG. E is just
vitamin
E. Annatto EGG. If you go on their website, they have it. I think it's 150 milligram a pop. It's just a tiny soft gel like that. Annatto EGG.
Awesome. So that answers my question, which was how do we apply some of this wisdom that you've been sharing? And then I kind of like 2 more questions if you're up for it.
Yes.
Kind of going back to cholesterol. There's a lot of people that are doing more meat-based diets these days. Now, they're, at least our audience, the individuals that are doing that are particularly careful to only do grass-fed, pastured meat, not factory farmed meat with all that junk in it. But part of what happens for some people in that case is they find their cholesterol goes up in their blood biomarkers. Now, I would imagine in an individual that's dealing with inflammation, if we go back to some of the work of I think it was Paul Ridker, let's say someone has high CRP or high interleukin-6, then I could imagine that that's a problem potentially, because a lot of the fat could be oxidized. If there's high inflammation, there's probably also high levels of oxidative stress and free radicals that are causing issues where that fat is then oxidizing. If an individual is very careful about keeping their inflammation levels down, and they have low high sensitivity CRP, they have low interleukin-6, and they're consuming a more meat-based diet from grass-fed animals, and their cholesterol goes up, do you see that as a bad thing? Or is it possibly just fine, and that individual might make more testosterone, and it might even be associated with lower risk of dementia as they age?
Yeah. That is, now you are now in an ideal world. You're talking about individual that have no past history of anything. They just want to eat a diet similar. I'll just think, don't take this offensively. Similar to like a polar bear.
Yeah, sure.
Only meat eater. Understand. If you do this, I would say this. I'll give you the good news. I love eating meat, but I tend to eat less. But I understand there's a whole construct of people eating meat. If you eat meat, particularly grass-fed meat, you're going to have a decent amount of MK4. I can tell you this. Why? Because the cow eat grass, and the grass is green, so they got the MK4 coming in. And then, so now the MK4 will go to the meat. And if you eat the meat, you have high MK4. So if you're meat eating, you would expect that you will have a reasonable amount of MK4, a reasonable amount of CoQ10, and with that, a reasonable amount of cholesterol, because these are all lipid-soluble material. So the cholesterol rise is not a surprise to me. That if you eat organ meat, they'll rise even higher, particularly liver. So it is well known, not a surprise like that. And long time ago, the Eskimo were eating only meat. They're fine. So I know all this kind of narrative like that. But we are modern day. We are not Eskimo. We don't go out there and we're sitting in front of the computer, and there are other stuff too, like that. So, I said that if somebody doesn't have a family history of, the high cholesterol may not be necessarily bad in and of itself. Maybe that if my cholesterol is high, maybe I want to check what percent of my high cholesterol is oxidized cholesterol. Mm-hmm. They say that cholesterol is potentially atherogenic. That means that it will cause clogging of the artery. But oxidized cholesterol, they are very sticky. They will be atherogenic. Mm-hmm. And how do you get oxidized cholesterol? That means that the LDL particle, the cholesterol thing, is oxidized like mad because inflammation is high. So in that instant, I would ask that audience to take tocotrienol. It's so classic. Please take tocotrienol, because if you take tocotrienol, the tocotrienol will land on your LDL particle. It will resist oxidation. We even have a clinical study on this. Of all the vitamin E, only the delta tocotrienol will resist oxidation of your LDL particle, which would expect it to be high on people who are just meat eating. So that would be it. I would say I'll zone in on that. If the person have a low muscle mass because they're elderly, then perhaps to consider taking GG as well, like that. Because the GG can help you to build skeletal muscle mass like that. And I assume that your audience is largely already rejecting statin taking. However, some among your audience may be taking it. And if you do, please take two things. If you do, I'm not asking you to stop or not stop. If you are taking statin, if you're not taking statin, then this is irrelevant to you. Take the tocotrienol, take the GG for muscle mass, the tocotrienol to protect your LDL because you're eating a lot of meat. If you continue to take statin because you have lipidemia, then please take two things. You take CoQ10 and you take GG. GG will at least mitigate the statin from blocking your GG from synthesis, and then you add CoQ10, and that is exactly what duoquinol is. I'm touching it now. Duoquinol is CoQ10 in the ubiquinol state and GG.
Oh,
that's it. So, by the way, you can download this thing on my website. Please do, And after you download, if you want to call me up for another interview, I would love that. I'm doing this thing strategically. And by the way, when I did this, we are trying to sell the duoquinol the least price that we can to have the maximum benefit to everybody out there. So if you are meat eating, I think the duoquinol is good. But if you are statin taker, it's a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer, because if you don't believe in me, just simply go on it. Statin, you just type statin and Jaranol, you'll be able to read none of them I published. Somebody else did. You'll see obviously the reason for all the side effects of statin is the decimation of GG. Hands down. Hundreds of people write about them, but people are not talking. I think people are not talking like that because there were no GG available until now. But there were CoQ10. Much further downstream, CoQ10 dropped. So many of our audience know. If you take statin, you should take CoQ10.
This is fantastic. Guys, if you're getting value and enjoying this conversation, the best thing that you could do is first share this episode. That will let Dr. Barrie Tan and I know that you appreciated it and help it reach more people. But then on top of that, you pick up these products that they're making. I mean, I'm going to buy the Design for Health Anato EGG product. And then what would you say is the best duoquinol product? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, the duoquinol product, Design for Health have one. I think on the internet, I think vaguely the name is CoQ 10.1. I think they tried to be a little bit cool, So CoQ 10.1, like it's CoQ 10 and then CoQ 10.1. They just made it up like that.
Okay.
You'll find them. And if it is not, if your audience send us an email or you ask me a whole string of questions, I will make sure that Jen or Keith Keith Dunn or Jen Wilson, they'll answer you. You can see, right? If I would be purely a salesperson, I would have all these things show you. You ask me, I don't even have to answer you. But I want
you don't even have the products on your website.
But I wanted the audience to do it because it is important. You will find we have so many people who tell us the testimony on this. It is beautiful. But I know I may run out of time. I want to say other thing that I didn't get to talk. When I did the tocotrienol, now I'm jumping back to the tocotrienol. The GG have no to the best of my knowledge, have no indication in this, but the tocotrienol did. While I was doing all these studies on tocotrienol, first on lipidemia, and then I decided that, this tocotrienol, and then go back to the image again, on the cell membrane thing, and it's able to protect the cell membrane, and the cell does not have to go to autophagy. And for those that need to go to autophagy, just flush out like that. So then the cell is preserved. Then in a way, tocotrienol is anti-aging. And if it is anti-aging, then it would work really well on chronic condition. You see how my progression of thought is? Then I said, okay, lipidemia is one kind of a chronic condition. What other kind of chronic condition can I try? I asked myself the question first. So I'm segue already. So we're not stuck in a place only talking about lipid because it's about statin, and your audience and you would appreciate it. So I decided that, okay, I'm going to spend for 10 or so years of my life, and I'm almost 70 years, so I don't have, how many years I have left, but I did this. So for 10 years, I only studied chronic condition, and the chronic condition I studied, I actually have done many clinical trials on it. First is lipidemia, so we already talked about that. Then I studied pre-diabetes, chronic condition, and about 90 million Americans are pre-diabetic. And by the way, the CDC now publish every year about 5 to 6% of pre-diabetic, 90 million, will become diabetic. So separately, 35 million people are diabetic. So 35 million standing, and then 90 million pre-diabetic, and about 5% to 6% of this become diabetic every year.
How many Americans are left?
Huh?
How many Americans are left?
I know. And this is actually not a very good picture. So therefore, we use tocotrienol to study lipidemia, pre-diabetes, diabetes, and now we are having 2 last studies. And after that, I don't think I can continue. There's so many. We have a study in Texas. We decided to study obese men and obese women. Now that is very challenging because for them, inflammation abound and they're carrying a lot. It's nothing to sneeze at. So we decided that, is there a contribution I can make? So the study is ongoing. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It's during COVID time. Hopefully that would be that. The study we put the most time in is the last one here, all chronic condition. There's one fictitious one, not a shadow one, number 6, but this one here is fatty liver. Approximately 25 to 30% American have fatty liver, silent disease. Who would have guessed 30 years ago, people have cirrhosis of the liver because of excessive alcohol drinking. The liver cannot process the ethanol. Who would have guessed today we're having cirrhotic liver because of excess amount of fat that we are eating, and then the fat cannot egress out of the liver. So they're fatty liver, and that condition is called NAFLD. Simply stand for it's so painful the way the disease is called, non-alcohol fatty liver disease. So in other words, it's same as alcohol drinking problem of the liver, but it's non-alcohol fatty liver disease.
But a lot less fun.
But a lot less fun. So we are studying NAFLD with tocotrienol, and I am so thrilled. We did a 3-month study, tick. We did a 6-month study, tick. We're finishing a 12-month study. Again, I'm a tiny company. Every penny I made, I pushed to do clinical study because I want facts. I want people to know this work. I will never push any snake oil, but if it works, I want like the world to know about this. And we saw this. Liver enzyme drop, the insulin sensitivity increase, the sugar control is better. People who have fatty liver decrease their flip side of type diabetes, so that like that, and inflammation is in control. Steatosis, which means the fat in the liver is reduced, and lastly, the fibrosis of the liver is also contained. When you have too much fat in the liver becomes fibrotic, which means scarring tissue. That's not good. Once you have scarring tissue, it's very difficult to reverse. We saw mitigation and control of all these 5 things I mentioned to you. I am really happy. So in the next year or 2, I'm going to talk about it. So when the study is published, you can just have an interview with me just to talk about type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, and fatty liver. That alone would be enough. But I thought I better say this, otherwise you'll be all locked up only in lipidemia. Anyway, the last one is totally separate. It's a chronic condition. Is we have 8 clinical trials in Denmark on cancer. And cancer is a horrible C word. And then and they are stage 4 cancer patients. What cancer are we studying? My colleague in Florida is studying 2. Colon cancer, because of the elderly population in Florida, and also pancreatic cancer, the deadliest of all cancer. He's studying that. In Denmark, we're doing 4. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer of women, and then the other 2 for men and women, lung cancer and colon cancer. And so far, we have results for the ovarian cancer, and it helped the stage. Remember, it's stage 4. There are not any options left. Mm-hmm. And for those who are on standard of care, they're not good. No patient remain. Right. I just don't want to say the word after 6 months.
The people that did what the doctors told them to do all died.
Correct. Yes, it is. And then for those who are standard of care plus tocotrienol, 60% of them still survive after 6 months. And after 24 months, 25% is still living. I am having great hope. If the studies that we have are all successful, is there a chance for me to make a nutritional supplement? The FDA will probably not allow. Probably I will publish the study so people can read the study and do what they can. Maybe under one exception. Under Congress have passed an act under the Compassionate Care Act. When there are no options available, then this may be possible. We have not looked to the legality of how this is done. We are putting blinders on and say, does my tocotrienol help to kill the cancer cell? So far, our mechanism is 2 things. 1, when they take the tocotrienol intracellularly in the cell, it inhibits the cholesterol synthesis. And cholesterol synthesis is very important to cancer because cancer multiply 100 times faster than normal cell. So they need a lot of cholesterol. So if you inhibit the cholesterol, they cannot form the cell properly. So there's one stratagem of how to go after cancer. The other one is if the cancer already becomes a tumor. In other words, it's already a solid tumor. Solid tumor is needing nutrient about 100 times more. So when they need so much more, they cannot do it by osmosis, by sucking nutrient from next door because it's already an organism, so to speak. So they create basically a plumbing job. They create artery and to the nearby artery and suck nutrient in. And that process is called angiogenesis. Angio is artery, genesis is new, but it's very inferior artery. So tocotrienol is an anti-angiogenic agent. So you cut off the feeding tube, so you starve the tumor to death. So if you are wired just simple language. If you very crude, if you are wired to grow like a dinosaur, you cut off the feet, the dinosaur will be the first to die. So therefore, tocotrienol is anti-angiogenic. So anti-angiogenesis and anti-cholesterol, those are good enough for me. There are other mechanisms, but those two are good enough. So we have that. We'll probably can talk about that, but probably never can write it on a bottle. Otherwise, the FDA will come after us. But we are thrilled.
They'll come shut you down.
I know, but for the audience, right? At least I'll put that question. Why I did not pay for the study in Denmark. I do have to come up with the medicine. And that already cost me probably $1 million or more. The Danish government came up with almost $15 million of that. So why are they doing that? For altruistic reason, for publication? No. They're thinking of the possibility if this thing works, they are interested to see what they can do in their kingdom of their country. Yeah. So if this can also benefit us, there are only 5 million people, although Denmark is a very rich country, there are 5 million people, they are doing this. And we should see that our own government doing it. We are not. So, and I don't know how to make this happen. Even if I'm successful, I don't get FDA to approve this, except for the Compassionate Care Act of people that have no option. So I don't know where that would go. I'll worry about that after the clinical trials come out positive. I think I want them to
keep moving forward, my man.
Thank you so much.
You're doing God's work, and where there's a will, there's a way. And I know more and more people who are marching forward, regardless of the approval of certain agencies. Wow. So anyway, I'm not suggesting anyone do that. I just know of more and more people that are doing that for the good of humanity. The last two things that I wanted to mention. So are you familiar with the Gerson protocol by Dr. Max Gerson, a German physician in the 1920s?
No, inform me. I've heard about this, but I don't know enough.
So I was turned on to it by a girl that had stage 4 cancer, and she'd gone through multiple rounds of chemotherapy and just kept getting worse, and it was ruining her health, and she was told she'd never have children. So finally, after they told her she had to go back and do more chemotherapy, she said, I'm done. She read about this Gerson protocol, which detoxifies the liver and boosts endogenous glutathione through coffee enemas. And then on top of that, it involves rigorous juicing, mostly vegetables, because these people have cancer. And to my knowledge, hundreds of thousands of people have done it. It saved this woman's life. She now has children and did it all with that combination. I'm not saying that's all she did, but she heavily credited, when she told me the story, she heavily credited the regular coffee enemas for detoxing her liver and the juicing protocol to her survival and the fact that she was able to overcome stage 4 cancer and eventually have a family. I would be very fascinated to see in people that are willing, a combination of your products, your vitamin E, with the Gerson protocol, Gerson. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. That one. I took a quick comment so that you can ask the other question. You mentioned a coffee extract that do detox. I'm not surprised by that. Yeah. Because that one will be on the outside of the body to detox, to suck things out that are toxin. You mentioned that her diet increased glutathione. I just briefly heard that. The coffee, it's a coffee enema. So you administer the coffee diluted with water. It's made in a special way, and it's taken as an enema, and then the coffee is absorbed through the hepatic portal vein into the liver. And it actually stimulates a 5-fold increase in liver activity over an acute period of time. And then they found some downstream effects it boosts endogenous glutathione production, which is something that's very rare, especially because that's typically only done with like grass-fed whey protein and a few other compounds. Yes. So it is you can read about it if you want to dig in a little bit more. There's, you can, if you Google search the Gerson protocol, and I think they probably own Gerson.com or Gerson.org. I'm just kind of checking as we talk, but I'll send you some resources too. Would you do that? Yeah. And on the glutathione things, and then you can move on to the next question. We did a clinical trial
and we weren't expecting that. And the research was done in UC Davis. We gave people tocotrienol. We found out endogenously that when they took the tocotrienol, it endogenously increased the synthesis of glutathione. I was really amazed by that. So if any of things that I've said you find interesting, you send me an email, whoever you connected, Jen or Keith,
and share this episode,
we can send
guys.
you the paper like that. So I was surprised. So it actually increased the endogenous antioxidant, and glutathione is an antioxidant. So wow, if you increase glutathione, that's a good deal, because glutathione is the endogenous antioxidant.
Yeah, so that's fascinating.
Yeah, I think that is fascinating. So anyway,
guys listening to this, men and women, if you're enjoying this, the greatest way that you can show your appreciation for Dr. Barrie Tan's time and energy and wisdom is by sharing this episode, and then of course picking up these products, getting his book at the website. I'm pulling it up here just to make sure I got it right. barrietan.com/book. And Dr. Tan, it is that resource, that website is gerson.org, GERSON.org. Okay. If you wanted to go a little bit more. The last question that I had, and then we're going to kind of land this plane, and unless there's anything else that you have to share. But guys, definitely pick up the truth about vitamin E at barrietan.com/book. In those studies on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, are you guys tracking the blood marker ALT before and after?
Yes. I have simplistically called that a liver enzyme, AST, ALT.
Yeah.
Anthony, is comprehensive. We even did CAT scan. No, it is so expensive. So we did that, and we did fatty liver, ALT, AST. We begin with that. We did that in the 3-month study.
Yeah.
And then separately, the study finished, published. The 6-month study finished and published. And then we did the 12-month study. And each of those, the reason we did the 3, 6, and 12 month is intentional. We did that because sometime when we do a 3-month study and then we make that claim like that, then I said, the liver is the largest organ in the body, and then it has a lot of weight in it. So I may want to be sure that it is a time dependent. So that's why we independently did a 3, 6, and 12-month study. And interestingly enough to us, that in all of the 3, 6, and 12 months, the liver enzymes did drop, ALT and AST, as well as a A1C, as well as a fasting glucose. But basically, we wanted to see, is the metabolites in control, which means it's triglyceride and sugar in control. Did they do anything to the insulin? Rather than insulin resistance, the insulin sensitivity increased. I'm saying so many things at one time. And then they said, and then by the way, we even checked them, we didn't expect. And they even have weight loss. Anybody that has fatty liver disease and weight loss is good news. So
that's great.
They have weight loss, about 10 pounds, 10 to 15 pounds. I don't know the exact number, something like that. And then the liver is under stress. So this liver enzyme increase, the liver enzyme drop. And then we measure inflammation. The C-reactive protein drop. And then we also measure oxidized fat, MDA. The fat also is dropped. Then finally, I just said, wow, we've done all of this experiment. Let's see if the scarring tissue is reduced, which is fibrosis. If the steatosis, which means the fat inside the liver, you can use ultrasound to do that. And when we saw that the fat is reduced and also the scarring tissue is in control, I said that, man, this is as good as it's ever going to get. I mean, what else you want? And this is a nutritional supplement. If I push any more, then FDA knock on my door. I don't want them to knock on my door. So I've done this. So if there's any more you think out there, if you have a liver somehow that is damaged or you want improvement in your liver health, tocotrienol. And just make sure that and then to take this material, make sure that you do not take tocopherol. You take the tocotrienol with a meal because it's absorbed properly like that. So this, I would say, rather than taking credit to myself, this is the best thing the earth have given to me. And this is from that humble plant. I'll show you the beautiful picture one more time from this plant. I extracted this from this plant and from nothing else. I didn't make it artificially like that. And by the way, you can Google and you can buy this. Just look online. How do you cook with annatto? Just do like that. And likely they are more South American food, ethnic food, and even some Filipino food. And there's a little bit anthropology in it. You know why the only Asian country who use annatto and just about nobody else in Asia use it like that? Because the Spaniards, they went to South America, they went to Philippines. And many Americans may not know this. The Spaniards were in Philippines for 400 years, almost as long as they did in South America, which is why many Southeast Asians that are of Filipino descent, they might look like me, but then their name would be Spanish name. Little wonder, right? So because when they did, they brought the seeds, and so the Filipino also use it in their cooking. So if you wanted to increase in your food fare, figure out how to cook with annatto, then you have small amount of GG, small amount of tocotrienol, not bad, but you have to live with the color because everything is going to look red, you know?
Yeah. Is your mouth gonna be all red?
No, the mouth is not going to be all red. If you look at some of the South American food and the Inca food, they like to use it for cooking in pork. And then when they make the pork or even beef, but beef tend to be dark already. But when they put it in pork, the pork look reddish color. It's not usually how we see pork. And then the Mexican dishes would put it in rice and they pound it and they put it in the tortilla chip. So if you make your homemade tortilla chip, you can pound with the annatto seed, and then so you can. But they are very ethnic food. They're not typically American. In American food, they put it in the coloring of cheeses, coloring of meat, and coloring of ice cream. So those will be very limited sterile use, but at least they use natural color, right? Rather than synthetic color, you know. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. This was a lovely conversation.
I know. And let me know after you sift through that if you want to specifically interview me on just GG like that. I'll wrap this up. Because we've done so much trials on tocotrienol, so we are pretty much good. We are waiting for the cancer trial, the obesity trial, like that to come, and then the finishing of the NAFLD trial. Then we're probably done on the tocotrienol. On the GG, we have 2 committed, ongoing, and 1 coming. From how we study that, you will know what we're trying to do. This you should write down. Okay. We have 1 trial on men and women for 2 months to see how tocotrienol would increase their testosterone and libido. That's it. So we're doing that study, and we probably will see most of this study completed and answer in the second half of the year. So that's this one. The second one is more complicated, more intense, and probably will not finish until next year. That is, people who you have to listen to the whole sentence to get it. People who are on statin under supervision from their cardiologist who have confirmed myopathy. And then they take GG and to see if GG would reduce their muscle symptom. So that study we will do. And also they're on an exercise treadmill to see when taking GG, they're able to improve their otherwise muscle pain. And also GG build new muscle. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to do all of this together. So that study probably would not complete until next year. And then other study would be on a young college student who are not taking statin, if they will improve their exercise performance. That one not yet started. And the last study would be on the opposite end of like the elderly to see if they would improve their thrive. If I can do all those 4 studies on GG, I I think I done the honor to the Anato who gave me the privilege to discover this from the plant, and then I'll at least see how this is useful to human. Thank you so much for allowing
Thank you.
me to.
This has been wonderful. If I can, I have one last question, and then we're gone. We're gone. Okay. For someone like me, I would like what you believe to be the optimal daily dosage of GG. You're like through the GG Gold product, tocotrienols through the Delta Gold product, and the duoquinol, like in milligrams for someone like me.
Okay, I would say like this on the tocotrienol first. If somebody don't have a family history of this or that, a healthy person like that, anywhere from 100 to 200 milligram would be good, more or less depending on the weight of the person. If someone have a mild chronic condition, I mentioned a few already earlier, then anywhere from 200 to 400 would be good. And if someone were to be on a malignant condition, I also mentioned some example, then those studies would be more like 400 to 600 milligram. This is for the tocotrienol.
400 to 600
for the GG
for cancer.
For the GG, then I think that there is no reason to take more than 300 milligram. In the studies that I conducted, we have two groups. One group is on 150, the other group is on 300. For both the testosterone libido as well separately on the interfering of the statin on myopathy, 150 milligram group and the 300 milligram group. So you can see that range like that. A start would be 150 milligram would be adequate. And then on the duoquinol, they are in the internet, they sell 100 milligram, 100 milligram of ubiquinol and 100 milligram of GG. The other one is 200 milligram, 200 milligram, meaning 200 milligram of ubiquinol and 200 milligram GG. There is no reason I see that somebody need to take more than that. So I hope I answer your question. I personally take about 300 milligram CoQ10. For GG, I take about 150 milligram. And for tocotrienol, I take 300 milligram personally. Now, I take that. I'm a lightweight person, about 125 pounds. Why do I take the way I did? Because I have hypercholesterolemia, and I believe that the GG and the CoQ10 is good for my heart. So for that reason.
Dr. Barrie Tan, I don't know if you played baseball, but you knocked it out of the park.
Thank you. I hope that your audience will enjoy this. And if they spend an hour and a half, you are blessed. And if you have anything you wanted to send me a note, your people, you can always leave me a note on my Twitter account, this, that, and other one. And if you want something sent to you, something you cannot find on the internet that I mumble about, I would get one of my people here to send you the paper. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barrie Tan.
Okay,
appreciate you guys.
And a wonderful evening.
You too, guys. Go to barrietan.com, BARRIETAN.com/book to get his book. And again, if you got any value or enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends, family members, and coworkers. This is Anthony DiClemente and Dr. Barrie Tan signing off.